Hello, everyone, and welcome to another discussion. Today I'm going to be talking about the negative income tax. It's something that I'm going to be debating pretty soon. So I've done some research and I've finally wrapped my head around what I think is a quite difficult topic. There's some people who seem to think that it's a program that is similar to the universal basic income, but that's just not the case. And I'd like to talk today pretty much about what the negative income tax is, try to explain it in my own words so I can understand it better, and hopefully those who are listening can understand it a little bit better. And yeah, we can explore it as a possible alternative to the current welfare system that we have today. So I was listening to Milton Friedman describe this thing. I looked at it over a couple times and just kept listening and listening, and it finally clicked with me. And how it clicked with me was by completely forgetting everything that I knew about welfare as it is distributed, as it is administered today. So that helped me to reconsider, because that's what it's supposed to do. The negative income tax is supposed to replace the current welfare system as it is. So I completely forgot about that. I said, okay, take people as they are. There's no concept of Centrelink, no concept of dole or welfare. The idea of the negative income tax is to bring everyone onto the same playing field, in that everyone is required to file for an income tax or file whatever their earnings are for the period, for whether it be quarterly or yearly. If a person was to file $0, they are still required to file so that the government knows that they've made no money, that they can then receive a subsidy that is appropriate for them. So, forgetting everything about welfare as we know it, everyone under a universal basic income reports their income. Now, it is a program where people are subsidized. A payment is given to those who earn nothing. And there's a certain threshold point that is determined, whether it be maybe the standard figure, for example, New Start in Australia, you get about $500 per fortnight. So it might be something along those lines. So let's just take a figure of $5,000, for example. That's the main minimum standard that has been set, the threshold that has been set. So $5,000. If you earn $0 for that year, you report your income, and you will receive a subsidy of, say, $5,000 to take you up to that minimum tier, that minimum threshold for payment subsidy from the government. Now, the whole idea of the universal basic, sorry, not the universal basic income, the negative income tax is to ensure that people who don't have work, who aren't earning money, will be able to have a certain minimum standard. But the whole aim is to incentivize work. So right now, under the current system, if you were to earn a certain amount of money, it's possible that you could lose your current benefits. So it disincentivizes finding work and going back into the workforce. But say you were to earn $100 in a quarter or $200 in a quarter, and your $5,000 threshold is there. Rather than earning the full $5,000, if you earn $200, you would receive $4,800. So you'd still be up to the minimum, but that amount that you earned will be yours, and you still maintain the certain level. And it's only when you go above that threshold, say $5,000, that you will start to lose any form of subsidy. But that's the whole idea. The whole idea is that you will be rewarded as you get more and more work, as you get more and more hours. You can slowly and gradually begin to climb out of that threshold, that minimum threshold, from earning nothing into earning your own living. Now, it's not a perfect system. It's definitely not a perfect system. There are still opportunities for people to work the system. So, for example, you're guaranteed at least $5,000 in this scenario. There's going to be some who are still motivated to go out and earn for themselves, and there's some who are not. But the benefit of it is that it totally eliminates the exchange of money. It eliminates the exchange from one person, say an administrator or a social worker, to pass the money from the government into the hands of another person. Now, if you do away with that cost, it's tremendous savings that will be had by the state, and all that money can go somewhere else, wherever it may be. Now, the whole spirit of the negative income tax is one of equality, believe it or not, because it treats people in the same way. in that everyone is responsible to file for what they earn or what they don't earn. There is no class of welfare people. You totally remove those labels. There can't be such thing as a welfare queen if there is no such thing as welfare. Now, in terms of what that does to a society, I imagine it's going to be more uniting in that everyone has at least the very same responsibilities. Everyone reports to the taxman, whether you make money or don't, and that can be a unifying thing. And it removes that class status that we have between one group and another group, those who pay taxes and those who do not. So, in terms of providing a more level playing field, or at least applying more level standards across the board, that is far better than having a group of people who get stigma attached to them because they are on welfare and things like that. So that's another reason why the negative income tax is a positive thing. Another thing I would like to explore is this idea that I was exploring for myself, being critical of the welfare state. I explored the idea that, well, I try to prove my theory actually. I try to prove that if there was any sort of decrease in charitable spending in places where there were welfare states or places with high welfare costs. And I wasn't able to prove that theory correct. I assumed that if the government takes responsibility for everyone's problems, if the government takes responsibility for maintaining everyone rather than people being more self reliant, I was under the assumption that private and charitable spending would actually decrease. And I was very wrong about that. The reality is, as far as I could tell in the studies that are out there on charitable spending, the price does not, the amount does not change. People continue to donate. People continue to be charitable despite the government taking a lot of money from them in order to do good. So I found that quite interesting. And it makes the case, in my view, that whether the government is going to be charitable with your money or whether you are charitable with your own money, either way, there are people out there who are willing to give, willing to support and help each other. And it brings into question, in my view, how necessary it is for the government to administer charity and support to others. And you see many examples. For example, GoFundMe, it's a private company. It is a company that provides a simple way for people to give charity and to help others. Now, if you look at some of the campaigns on GoFundMe, many of those are for medical bills in places like the United States. If there's any kind of shortfall, people can jump in and they can support their family members, their community members, and it happens quite often. And even in places like Australia, there might be extreme cases where the public system can't support or doesn't support enough, and people are able to jump on GoFundMe and to do campaigns. And 1/3 of all the money that is raised on GoFundMe goes towards medical costs. So I think that's another reason, another way that people are able to provide charity privately, and they do it themselves on their own accord. The beauty of that is no individual is overly burdened. People are able to give the amount that suits them and their budgets. It's very targeted. The money goes directly to where it's supposed to go with only one person, one group. Obviously, GoFundMe takes a commission from it, but the money goes directly to where it needs to go. It's quick. It's simple, very simple, and I think it's a very positive thing, and it's a development from the private sector, a development that facilitates the charitable giving of people, and I think it's a very positive thing. The reason I mention this is because if you're going to do away with any form of welfare, administered by the government or run by the government, you have to explore the possibility, and you have to be aware of the reality that people would have to step in on behalf of the government to ensure that support is provided to people who need it. Now, that it takes a big, huge leap of faith, I think, because right now, as we have it, the government is responsible for a lot of the good that we do in the world. Now, my criticism hasn't always been the fact, whether or not we should help people. That to me is a given. My criticism, mainly towards the governments and to welfare systems, is that the best way that we can support those who need it. And I'm not convinced that the government is the best way to do it. And I imagine that given that people are charitable as it is without the government, whether the government is involved or not, I wonder, and would like to explore this with anyone who's listening, anyone who wants to talk about it, is if people give charity to GoFundMe, to any form of charity that they desire, imagine if you weren't taxed as much as you are. Imagine if you paid less tax towards these programs. Imagine if you had more money to work with for your own charitable giving. And if you utilize systems like GoFundMe, whether it be some form of private organization, where support can be delivered directly, quickly, where it doesn't go through as many hands, you have to imagine that as a kind of a future goal or a possibility that we could achieve if we reconsidered how we looked at welfare, how we looked at supporting people. Because my view basically is that the government views people generally as children. Children who can't look after themselves, or we need the ever overwatch of the government for everything that we do. But I'd like to explore the possibility and have the discussion about what individuals can do privately by our own will, by our own choice, to deliver and support those who need it in society. And I think if we have that conversation, I think we'll be able to further progress these ideas that I think have kind of hit a stopping point. For example, the negative income tax, the idea of private charity taking over. I think those ideas have largely been buried and haven't been explored, or aren't as explored as much in society today. Everything is about the government. What can the government do? What should the government do for me? And I think it's an interesting conversation that we should have at this time, because I think we have the technology that that people didn't have in the 1950s, say, when a lot of these ideas were being discussed. We have the technology. Perhaps whatever challenges we had before in delivering a kind of private charity, a privately organized charity system, perhaps with technology and a lot of the new developments that we've had, the increase in knowledge that we're seeing with the internet and things like that. I'm curious, can we actually achieve this goal? Can we explore the idea of more private charity, less government involvement? Let's have that discussion. Let's talk about it. If you have any comments you'd like to make, please make them. If you have any questions, let's talk about it. Let's get this conversation going. Let's explore the possibility of what humans can do with the technology that we have, with as far as we have come in this society. We have to consider what we can do, how we can do things differently, how we can do things better. This is something that we've been doing as a species for a very long time now. We are always looking for how we can improve things, and everything should be open for that discussion. Our ideas, how we do things, and I think it's an important time to do that, especially considering that, as far as I can tell, the default seems to be resorting back to government. What can government do? Whenever I'm on Facebook, I hear people making complaints about, what the government's going to do for them in their economies and their local economies. The government seems to be the first place that people look, where my thoughts are that there's a lot of power and a lot of influence within individuals in communities to develop their economy and develop their economic activity. And the same goes for the United States. There's a big push for universal health care. I've mentioned Andrew Yang before. His main platform, or one of his main platform policies, is universal health care. Once again, looking to the government to solve all of our problems. And I think if anyone is situated to do something differently, to rely on the private sector, rely on private individuals to coordinate voluntarily, to exchange with each other, can find a way to improve the situations that we have, to improve our healthcare issues, to improve our issues with homelessness and things like that. So let's have the conversation. If you have any comments, like I said, ask away. Let's talk about it. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks.